Reifenhardt's daily routine includes getting tied to a tree trunk in the morning and then getting beaten to death all day, every day. Yep, it's not exactly the kind of morning workout most useless manhwa protagonists can sign up for. Poor guy even tried to run away, but his master would always catch him red-handed. His master believed this was the only way forward to become a Chad like himself. To figure out how Reifenhardt ended up stuck with this lunatic who seems to know nothing beyond hustle and making muscle, we start everything from the beginning. In a world where humans hate monsters, Reifenhardt used to be a mage, the reincarnation of evil who commanded armies of monsters. Or at least, that's how humans like to tell the story. But in reality, he was one of the kindest people to exist in this world, because he believed monsters had the right to live too. From his perspective, humans were the only true evil, enslaving and exploiting other species for their own benefit. So he left human civilization and started living with other beings, and his love for them only grew deeper. Through his efforts, he brought together all kinds of races, trolls, dwarves, orcs, and more. With their collective strength, not only did he become the strongest mage in existence, capable of wielding 10-circle magic, but he also established an entire empire where these beings could live free from discrimination. The Antares Empire. But humans couldn't stomach seeing monsters continue to grow and claim more land. So they sparked a war, trying to push them back into the wilderness. This led to catastrophe, with bloodshed plaguing both sides. Humanity's 5 greatest heroes killed Reifenhardt's most beloved generals, and they even went so far as to kill his lover too, an elf woman named Cirrus. And now, this so-called group of heroes has come forth to take down Reifenhardt as well. But Reifenhardt had also hit his breaking point. With his most cherished comrades gone, he had no reason to hold back, and became the very demon king humans had labeled him as. He crushed 4 of humanity's heroes at once. The only one left standing in his way was the martial king, Tesron. Tesron was a massive man, built like the Greek gods. This musclehead had so much raw strength that with just one blow he shattered every bone in Reifenhardt's skull like it was bubble wrap. Reifenhardt realized there was no way he could beat this Greek gigachad head-on, so he pulled out his trump card, his regression magic. With his 10-circle magic, he attempted to regress back in time and promised to undo everything he had lost. But Tesron interfered at the last moment, messing everything up. Still, Reifenhardt managed to regress to the past, but instead of returning as the scrawny, nerdy mage he once was, he now had the muscular body of Tesron. At the same time, Tesron was also regressed into the past, but trapped in the body of young Reifenhardt. And so, Reifenhardt became the disciple of the legendary former King of Fists, Gerard Chrome Proteus. Everything Tesron endured in his prime to become a gym bro? Now Reifenhardt has to go through the same trial. One day when his master is down the mountains to visit the village, Reifen tries to test his magic skills by unleashing a spell, but he fails. He can't even manage simple spells, leaving him to wonder if becoming a wizard is even possible in this form. Suddenly he senses an inhuman presence. A green-skinned figure emerges uneasy, warning him to look the other way if he wants to live. Reifen guesses the green-skinned boy is a 3- or 4-year-old orc who likely escaped from a battle arena. The young orc threatens that if Reifen pretends not to see him, he will spare his life. After noticing the boy's attempt at conversation, Reifen recalls that orcs are a proud race who avoid needless bloodshed, even in tense moments like this. He switches to the language of grace, and asks if he is being chased. Surprised, the orc admits he is. The redhead offers his help and asks the boy to trust him. The orc, moved by Reifen's use of his people's tongue, already sees him as a brother and feels the kindness in his soul. Still, he warns that helping him will only drag the human into danger. From the orc's refined speech, Reifen suspects he is of noble blood. He then insists he has the power to help and promptly uses magic to create a place for this orc to hide. Before leaving, the young orc admits it's strange to see someone with such a muscular body call himself a wizard. Then he thanks him sincerely. Soon after, a group of soldiers arrives, grumbling about chasing an orc for just a few silver coins. Their leader offers the kiddo a gold coin if he's seen anything, which is clearly a trick. Reifen says he hasn't, but one soldier spots the tracks and points the way. King Reifen realizes too late that simple magic can't hide footprints. Even so, he refuses to let them pass into the territory of the future King of Fists. The soldiers are pissed off at being blocked by a country kid, but their leader warns them not to underestimate him. There are more than 10 of them, and something about this redhead doesn't seem normal. Even after noticing his strong build, the soldiers brush him off as just a kid and tell him to move. That's when Reifen's aura flares. He calmly warns that his fists are deadly weapons, as one swing could kill most people, so the merciful choice is to use a weapon instead. He grabs a club, fired up as he promises they will survive its blows. Though the gym Unbreakable focuses on unarmed combat, it still teaches weapon skills. This alone unsettles the soldiers, asking if the kid really dares challenge them after picking up a few tricks. But the moment the fight begins, Reifen batters them with ease, tossing men aside. The rest rush him together to kill the brat, unaware that club techniques are meant less for fighting and more for brutally training disciples to make them great fighters. During the fight, Rifen notices their swordplay and realizes they're likely mercenaries. Using the cudgel, he launches relentless strikes designed to hit every part of the body. When one attacks from behind, his blade crumples on impact, leaving the human screaming that no human should be this tough. The beauty of the cudgel techniques is that they never kill. Though joints shatter and bones crack, however, opponents survive. In the end, only one soldier remains standing, trembling as he asks who Rifen really is. But the redhead just keeps swinging, reminding him that all his friends are already down, so it's only fair he joins them. When it's over, the battered mercenaries thank him for sparing their lives. However, Rifen enjoys the brawl a little too much, unknowingly reflecting the harsh teachings of Jim Unbreakable. Afterward, the young orc thanks Rifen, vowing never to forget this day and to repay the debt no matter what. The boy tells him a warrior's head shouldn't bow so easily, but the orc now sees Rifen as his mentor. That's a role that in orc culture carries the same weight as a knight's loyalty to his lord. When asked his name, DarkMage introduces himself as Riffenharth Wald Antares. Then he asks about the orc's plans. The young orc admits he'd rather die a wanderer than live as a slave. He hopes to find a place for himself on this vast continent. To help him, Rifen suggests heading to the Land of Trials in the Rocket Mountains, where the hidden Blue Bear tribe lives. Before parting, he learns the orc's identity, that he is the green orc Tathid, son of Crota and bearer of Lat's axe. Rifen recalls the name Tathid, the mighty orc who became one of the 4 warrior kings, chief of the Blue Bear tribe, and later head chief of all orcs. He wonders if the original Tesron might have once crossed paths with him. For now he relaxes, amused that fate had him helping an orc, and feels an odd sense of connection. Gazing over the mountains, King Rifen remembers Tathid, Skiris, Mashalan, and Alport, quietly wishing to see them all again someday. 6 months after meeting Tathid, Grandpa Fist blasts Rifen with a focused energy burst, only to be surprised when Demon Lord blocks it with Spiral Guard. Impressed, the old man laughs, remembering when the boy insisted his real name was Riefenhearth. Clearly, he thought that all those beatings scrambled his head back then. Rifen, confused why the geezer's bringing up something from 6 years ago, hears Gerard suddenly realize it's already been 10 years since their training began. Rifen's grown stronger, yet the old man still grumbles that he's only 190 centimeters short by Jim Unbreakable standards. After all, the first 3 kings, Valkenshoot, Calbrain, and Rostal, each stood over 2 meters tall, so Grandpa pointedly asks if Rifen's been doing the breathing technique properly. Thinking back, Rifen in his past life stood 2.4 meters tall, though Rifen insists it's just a matter of constitution. Inside, he's losing it that this old fart actually expects him to grow bigger with a breathing trick. Gerard shrugs, saying size doesn't matter as long as the boy's strong and sturdy. For the final test, Rifen takes his stance and unleashes a 4-stack Calamity Horn, shooting forward like a bullet and smashing a rock wall into rubble. The old man bursts out laughing, certain this kid won't be beaten easily now. Rifen is relieved to have finally reached 4 stacks, and hears the words he's been waiting for. Gerard declares it's time for him to head out into the world. Out of nowhere, Gerard calls him by his true name, Riffenhearth, and tells him to live however he desires. Good or evil doesn't matter, as long as it's the life he chooses. That, he says, is the reward for surviving all these years of training. He recalls advice given 60 years ago by Master Rostal, the 3rd King of Fists, that there are 3 rules to live by. First, gather wealth but never through unjust means. When Rifen points out that he just said being a villain is fine, Gerard laughs and clarifies that to be a classy villain, one with dignity. Second, stand with those who have been wronged, for that earns respect. But he warns the weak aren't always the wronged. Since most of the world is weaker than Rife, he'll have to judge carefully. Third, and most important, never let the legacy of Jim Unbreakable die. He must pass his teachings to a student, not necessarily a prodigy, just someone he refuses to let slip away. Gerard handed him some travel money, about 30 silver coins, and a set of clothes. Rifen is stunned that one of the wealthiest men in the Vasili kingdom, with even a manor in the capital, offered so little. True, it is half a year's living expenses for a commoner, but he expected more. Gerard explains that the martial sect had fixed the departure funds, and in his day, it was only 25 coins. He also mentioned leaving a small gift hidden in the Setalad Mountains, giving Rifen a map with the location marked before parting ways. The reality of finally being free felt surreal until a calamity blast shot into the sky. It's Grandpa Fist's way of saying farewell and urging him to stay strong as heir to the great teaching. Without hesitation, Rifen bolted down the mountain at full speed. A villager urges the chief to let it go, but the old man stands firm, demanding fair payment from a noble and his knight for the food they consumed. The arrogant noble calls them low-born wretches and tosses a single gold coin at them, mocking that they've likely never seen one before. The chief calmly replies it's nowhere near enough. Enraged, the noble strikes him, insisting that a knight knows market prices better than peasants. It becomes clear these so-called knights are nothing more than bandits. They took over the village, ate their food, and now try to brush it off with a single coin, ignoring the real costs and effort behind it all. At that moment, Lord Stefan arrives, asks Edward what's going on, and with a cold smile, he calls the villagers wretches, warning him not to waste mercy on commoners who don't know their place. Riffenhearth, in bed with Cirrus, asks the sun-touched elf why she's touching him like that. She says his lean body is sharp and elegant, like a finely honed blade, though now in Tesseron's body, he feels more like a stone golem. He tears up, wishing Cirrus could forgive him. At least he's taller now. By his guess, Cirrus should be around 70 now, while he's only 17 in human years. He's reached Chrome City in the southern Vasily Kingdom, knowing she'll be sold next year at a slave auction in the Chitan Kingdom. Part of him wants to smash the place and free her, but that could ruin his goal of regaining his magic. Instead, he decides money might be the smarter way, except elf slaves cost a fortune, and he's completely broke. Still, he has a strong body, polished skills, and memories of the future to rely on. He hears rumors about some ruins on the road to the Chatan Kingdom. At the same time, Lord Stefan asks Todd, the ruins exploration specialist, and a wizard from Delphia's magic tower, if he has found the ruins yet, but Todd puts them on waiting. Stefan is convinced that's where the great swordsman Sir Claude von Leotas Alteon is buried. It's been 3 days since Rifen left Chrome City, traveling north along the central road toward the Hatan Mountains. Thanks to his stamina, he doesn't feel the cold. Though he remembers how the former martial kings used to walk around shirtless even in winter, he uses artificial flashbacks, a secret technique that allows him to recall memories at will, and he remembers the ancient ruins in the Hatan range. In his past life, he met Mage Todd at Delphia's magic tower, who had explored those ruins with the Alteons. But Riefenhearth remembers finding treasures that Todd's group missed and selling them for more than 2,000 gold coins. Now, as he arrives at Cattle Village, it's just like he remembers, with villagers murmuring about how no one dares go near the Valley of Death. The villagers stress over the nobles demanding a guide, knowing refusal could end badly with the chief unwell. Ted, familiar with the mountains, volunteers but quickly regrets it as his wife and kids cry while others push him to follow through. Just then, Riefen pops his face against the window like a madman and cheerfully offers to take his place. Rife, pretending to be just a passerby, claims he overheard their talk, though even he knows it sounds suspicious since no stranger would wander onto someone's property. When they question him, he confidently says he knows the area and has already been there. They warn Rifen that no one ever returns from the Valley of Death, but he insists he has been there before, thinking they are lucky to have saved one of their men. The Valley of Death is really a dungeon, a remnant of the ancient Silver Age. 50 years ago, Claude of House Alteon awakened his aura at the young age of 45 and went on countless adventures, his heroic tales spreading across the Vasily Kingdom. But when fame grew too great, he forgot his limits and charged into the valley with only a single servant, never to return. His demon sword Alteon, the treasured symbol of his house passed down for generations, was lost there as well. Even after 50 years, people still search for that blade. Stefan von Lepanto Alteon must be Claude's grandson. Relcia praises him for his elegance, saying he is every bit a knight even without a horse. Meanwhile, the muscle freak notices the Slayer elf enjoying herself with Stefan, and beyond her, he catches sight of Ceylon, the young priest of the party, wondering if that guy can actually pull off a holy spell. More than anything, he still can't believe Ceylon's actually a guy with such a pretty face, and he looks for an excuse to talk to Todd. With Todd and Ceylon chatting away, he doesn't get the chance to jump in, though it reminds him of how Todd used to talk to him back when he was a young wizard. Still, something feels off, making him wonder if Todd likes Ceylon, though he's sure Todd's too decent for that. Suddenly, Edward praises him for being their guide, but Rifen brushes it off, saying it's not a big deal since the villagers were too scared to go. He thinks their fear is only natural, but Edward arrogantly claims there's nothing to worry about with the bravest knights in the kingdom. The redhead is disgusted, convinced that all knights are arrogant jerks, and that chivalry only breeds narcissists. A sudden screech rings out as strange creatures ambush from the woods. As they charge, Relcia calls them filthy beasts for daring to attack humans blessed by Sayer. Stefan quickly orders his knights to push them back while Todd unleashes Fire Chain, spreading chaos, and Ceylon blesses the soldiers with unyielding courage. Even so, Stefan's skill stands out, his swordsmanship sharper than expected, though from a fighter's eye the Iron Fist Rifen finds him sloppy. It's no wonder Master Gerard is proud of Jim Unbreakable. Then, the rugged guy notices a swarm of orcs being chased by the monsters and smashes one with a punch. He blows it to pieces, all while wondering why no one cares about the non-humans. For now, he's stuck at the Jacquard Plains. In Todd's story, this is where Ted the Guide is supposed to die, with Lord Stefan Alteon leading the party. Stefan goes wild, slashing monsters, not caring about those around him. That is why the guide's fate makes sense, which in its own way makes him a bad person. It's no surprise the guide dies under his watch. In the chaos, Ceylon tells Rifen to hide behind a tree, showing at least some decency. A monster lunges at Rife, nearly hitting his eye, making him yell if he still has any tears left from training. He swings blindly and crushes the creature with a single punch, leaving the orcs stunned. Afterward, Stefan only asks Edward if the wizard and priest are safe, which disgusts Ryfin since they ignore everyone else's safety. Stefan then declares Altion's command is law and orders them to rest and enjoy their victory. Taking the chance to talk with Todd, this tank, as their guide, thanks him for saving his life. He then casually brings up that his friend Reifenharth is a wizard at Delphia Magic Tower and asks if Todd has heard of him. The mage seems surprised that someone so rugged could be friends with Riffenharth, then suddenly calls him a sweet and lovely boy, which gives the beefcake some serious creepy vibes. Ryfen asks Todd how his friend is doing, and Todd says that the young lad is studying magic in his usual way. When Ryfen presses if anything strange is going on, the mage suddenly gushes over Reifenharth's sharp nose, jewel-like eyes, and smooth skin, giving off total creep vibes. The beefcake figures Todd's obsession is about the body, though it's different from Grandpa Gerard's. He wants to beat up this jerk, but instead he demands to know about Reifenharth's attitude and personality. Todd admits that he doesn't care about his thoughts or actions, practically drooling like a pervert. Just then, Salon asks if Ryfen is hurt, but he brushes it off and tells him to check the orcs instead. The High Priest heals them even when they insist they are fine, and the humans scoff, telling him not to waste power on such creatures. Ryfen notices how Salon treats them more like pets than equals, realizing the real issue is how deeply flawed human values are. Securing rights for non-human races will be a long, uphill battle. Stefan then orders the guide to get moving, which irritates Rife, though he strangely responds in a robotic tone, telling them to head toward the stream, something Stefan notices as odd. Hours later, the party has already run into basilisks, dire wolves, and more than 20 ogres. They wonder how such a small mountain range can hold so many monsters. While everyone else is exhausted, Rifen enjoys the sight as he leads them straight ahead. He is skipping the safer path and giving them no chance to rest. To him, knights are arrogant, priests are stubborn, and wizards are petty and narrow-minded. In this rugged body, he still claims to be a wizard at heart. He takes them on the quickest route, so technically, he isn't lying or tormenting them. Stefan finally realizes why Sir Claude lost his life here, with this small range crawling with monsters. Suddenly, this knight spots light ahead, and Edward declares they've found the ancient ruins of Fulton. As they approach, Todd points out the entrance and says it's safe, but Ryfen insists on waiting outside, since there's no way he can return alone. With no choice, Stefan agrees they must protect the guide on the way back, though it's clear he never planned to. That makes Ryfen angry while Stefan raises his blade, declaring that a great knight rests beyond the gate. So, they will honor him by finding the demon sword Altion. As the party charges inside, Ryfen knows it's time to do what he came for. The ancient ruins of Fulton, now swarming with monsters and undead, were once an ordinary military outpost of the Silver Age. Yet its technology is so advanced that it still outshines today's standards. It has been a long time since he explored this place with Ciri, who once told him she heard a sylph whispering behind these walls. He believed it to be a secret gate, acting like his true muse. This Romeo once told Ciri not to blush, promising her a kiss as a reward, and to this day, the rugged guy still drools over that memory. He can't believe that he had the guts back then to do that with her right in the danger zone. Now he comes across a code based on Libra, with the symbols of Aqua and Terra mixed in reverse order, and he knows exactly how to solve it. With his limited magic, it's tougher than expected, and while his body is stronger now, his brain isn't quite what it used to be. Still, he works his mojo and slips off his coat, not wanting to ruin something worth 10 silver coins. Thus, he starts warming up to test his body when sudden screams echo, leaving him confused. He thought that those fools must have gone the wrong way, but the sound came from another direction. That's when he realizes this is actually a secret passage leading straight to the third basement floor. With the entrance now open, there's definitely an intrusion below, which makes him uneasy. Then it hits him. Fulton is still a military facility, and its magic system will trigger every kind of defense to fight off intruders. Back then, he and Ciri didn't have to worry about other sections. But now, with the Altion party blundering around, they could trigger a trap and all tumble down to the second basement floor, turning everything into chaos. Below, Lord Stefan sees Sir Thomas cut down by one of the traps, and heavy footsteps soon echo as a massive skeleton with an axe appears. Stefan knows there's no way he can defeat that monster. With multiple blades and a presence that feels almost demonic, it's not something a human can possibly take down so easily. Silan tends to the wounded soldiers, who thank him repeatedly, still shaken that the floor gave way and nearly killed them. He thanks Todd for saving their lives with magic, though Todd admits it only spared them from the fall and may not protect them from what comes next. Just then, an explosion sends the front line flying as a horned demon and his army charge, forcing soldiers to scramble in fear. Father Silen steps forward, raising his mace of light and pouring holy power into the troops. He blesses them with unyielding courage. To him, their cowering feels pathetic, but now they surge with energy, looking almost possessed as they shout that they'll show the strength of the Knights of House Altion. Todd is stunned by how much power Salon channels to push them into a frenzy, practically turning them into berserkers. At the same time, Todd casts his own spell, urging them to reclaim what is theirs, tearing the demon's blades straight from its hands. Meanwhile, Relcia leaps to attack the demon, but the demonic Grim strikes her hard, sending her flying. She's badly bruised, hoping her effort helps Master Stefan somehow. Stefan praises her courage and charges the top demon, slashing at full speed like a true knight. Edward hails their leader as a resolute warrior, while Stefan curses the vile monsters and urges everyone to stay focused. He reminds them this is where the mighty knight Claude met his end. Suddenly, flames erupt above, and another demonic beast appears, roaring and blasting fire that burns soldiers in its path. This so-called knight tells them not to fear, and reminds them to steel themselves as brave knights of House Altion. The battle spirals into chaos, but Stefan refuses to back down. He is determined not to let the demons win. Bearing the name of Altion's resolute knight, he charges the flaming beast with a shooting strike, only to be thrown aside and slammed to the ground brutally. As he lies motionless, Father Salon steps forward and unleashes holy light, but it's still not enough. Just as the demon is about to crush Cylon, Riffenhearth appears out of nowhere. He knocks the monster back and shields the priest. With a single punch, he destroys the beast in one blow, stunned at how easily it ends. He remembered how Tezron once dropped him the same way in his past life. Determined to move the wounded to safety, he lifts the injured elf into his arms. But before he can act, an army of undead soldiers rises. Rife, holding her close, fights through the swarm, carving a path while fending them off to make a way out. The so-called resolute knight finally wakes, and Edward quickly notices. Stefan looks around at the field of fallen undead. He asks what happened, only to hear from his right-hand man that the guide turned out to be a fighter. Then, he apologizes for not recognizing a nobleman. Before answering, the beefcake remembers that Todd knows his younger self from the magic tower, so he gives the name Rifen. Edward looks confused, saying he's never heard of any great champion by that name. When asked, Rifen admits he belongs to no noble family. Stefan realizes the fighter is just a commoner he mistook for a noble on training. He tries to save face by thanking him for swooping in at the end to finish what they had already handled. He acknowledges Rifen's skill, but the Iron Fist bluntly calls him out. He says that it looks like he has nothing left up his sleeve and is just blind to the truth. That stings Stefan, who snaps and demands respect for House Alteon. As Edward scrambles to calm him down, he claims a vagrant knows nothing about proper etiquette. Stefan calms down and asks Rifen about the master who trained him, but the Iron Fist brushes it off, claiming he just picked things up here and there. In truth, he recalls Grandpa Fist introducing him to a powerful technique. But with Master Gerard's reputation known across the continent, he can't risk drawing attention or letting that man learn his whereabouts. Stefan finds it hard to believe someone without proper training could be this strong. Rifen tells him to focus on the wounded instead. Edward notices how casually this guy throws around orders. He is completely unaware of how arrogant he sounds, like someone of high standing used to commanding others. He starts thinking this tank acts like royalty from another country, not even minding the age gap. Since Rifen talks the way an older man would to someone younger, which makes him even more interesting. Out of nowhere, Ceylon slips in and asks how tall Rifen really is. The priest is clearly charmed by this beefcake, knowing he stands at 192 centimeters. Though Rifen admits he doesn't know his exact weight. Curious about his training, Salon presses, but Rifen just says he got beaten up a lot, ate a lot, and lifted a lot of weight. He's weirded out by how friendly Salon's acting all of a sudden. Seelan Filmerix then explains that fighters never reveal their true training secrets. Rifen's aware of his past. After losing his parents, he grew up in the Filanence Order's orphanage, where his frail body and pretty face made him the target of teasing. That's why he longed for the things he lacked: a strong body, a hearty laugh, and a deep voice. At one point, he even dreamed of becoming a monk to prove his faith through physical strength. In reality, things didn't go as Pretty Boy hoped, as he didn't grow taller. His voice stayed high and his hair kept growing too fast. The more he tried to bulk up, the more his holy power surged from healing his sore muscles. This sparked his admiration for rugged physiques, giving Rifen the creeps. He excuses himself to scout the exit, but the Pretty Boy insists on coming along. Rifen tells him to stay with the wounded soldiers in case more trouble comes, making Salon sulk. Stefan decides to join, asking Relcia to stay behind and help the others. On the way, Sir Resolutely Useless grumbles at having help from this boulder, clearly annoyed that Rifen volunteers without regard for rank. Eager to show off, Stefan pushes for a fight with another demon. He seeks praise from the tank, but while he daydreams, Rifen knocks him out with a strike. When undead soldiers attack, this ultimate bruiser takes them down effortlessly, making it look like a piece of cake. After that, he heads off to do some treasure hunting, finally reaching the hotspot. He searches carefully, aiming to claim 50 gold coins worth of Silver Age relics. A few minutes later, he finds the Infinite Sack, a magical storage item that can hold up to 10 times its size. From memory, he knows there's another one right next to it, containing the Celestial Furnace, the Dagger of Recall, and the Sapphire of Magic Power. The dude is thrilled to find such a valuable treasure. While Stefan snaps out of it, Rifen blames the undead jerks for knocking him out in one hit. Lord Ego is furious that his plans are ruined, but Rifen is already scheming to knock him out again. The so-called lowly knight ends up passing out 3 more times. The bruiser ransacks the ruins, though he hopes the noble isn't seriously hurt. When Stefan finally wakes, he's baffled to get knocked out even when he's constantly on guard and thinking about tonics for later. Meanwhile, Rifen finishes maxing out the storage item and plans to return for more. After securing the exits, they escort the rest of the people out. Along the way, Salon questions Rifen about being a commoner, asking if it's odd he's so skilled. Rifen explains that his tone makes everyone feel beneath him, though he never expected his same blunt style to come off the same to Edward, who's 40, as it does to Lord Ego. The lad realizes he's only 22, so he decides to be a bit more careful and excuses his bluntness, saying he doesn't meet many people. In the next room, this bunch runs into a new demonic figure, the Grell Beast, which Rifen doesn't remember from his past life. Stefan assumes it's the guardian of this place, but this bruiser knows they stand no chance against it with their current strength and urges retreat. That's when they spot the demon sword Altion in the demon's hands. Edward suggests they fall back and return with reinforcements, but the dumb knight refuses to let the legendary sword be tainted. He insists on taking it back no matter the cost, even if it means facing absolute death itself. He leads his army forward while the Iron Fist calls him a reckless fool. The dimensional rift broke these ruins from the Silver Age, but their self-sustaining system patched the gaps by pulling in whatever it could. That's how this creature from another world got absorbed into the defense system, turning into what people now call the Dungeon Guardians. The demonic guardians roar at soldiers now, but the truth is, they were living peacefully until the ruins yanked them in and forced them into unpaid labor. Once a creature merges with the system, its power spikes, and Rifen knows the demon that killed Sir Claude was an aura wielder. If this dungeon guardian is even stronger than Tigrel, it's on a whole new level. Still, Lord Ego waves it off, telling his lackeys not to fear something chained up. This tank warns these clowns they'll die if they rush it. But Edward snaps back that a vagabond like him knows nothing of honor, claiming some things are worth dying for. The dude just thinks these idiots couldn't even handle Tigrel, yet somehow believe they can beat Grellbeast. Meanwhile, Pretty Boy is busy pumping holy steroids into the soldiers, lifting their spirits for what's basically a suicide mission. The soldiers charge in like moths to a flame, only to get thrown away like first-class trash, just as Hardhead predicted. They're basically punching bags being fed to their deaths. Yet Sir Useless still yells about bravery and the honor of House Altion, acting like his empty speech is enough to scare the demon. Rifen's already figured out Stefan's the type who never listens. But Sir Edward seems more reasonable, so there's still hope. Meanwhile, Lord Ego is dancing around Grellbeast with cheap shots. Pretty Boy is blasting it with holy maces like a one-man light show. Reltia swoops in with a clean strike that even earns Stefan's praise. Rifen admits she's second only to him, miles above Edward, and maybe he underestimated this bunch. Then Todd finally pulls out his wizard tricks, summoning a blizzard, but the system glitches and kicks into Phase 2. Grellbeast snaps its chains and lunges straight at the party, crushing humans like bugs, and the real nightmare begins. Lord Ego charges at the demon like he's about to end it, only to get smacked in the gut and slammed into a wall in seconds. Edward screams for his lord, but Stefan drags Reltia back into the fight, only for her to get tossed down too before Grellbeast hurls a massive fireball their way. Rifen jumps in just in time to shield Pretty Boy, apologizing for being late to the party. Now he's sizing up the demon, wondering if this body's martial skills can really handle a monster like that. Back when he was a wizard, he would have avoided life or death gambles like this, but the fighter in him feels a rush at the thought of testing himself against such a strong opponent. For the first time, he feels like a real martial artist, and he thinks Gerard would actually be proud. He remembers Grandpa Fist's old lesson. When in doubt, throw the first punch with a focused energy blast. He dodges Grellbeast's strike but still gets scratched by the demon's sword, realizing that a magic blade can hurt him even if steel can't. The beast kicks him hard into a wall and Pretty Boy screams his name, but Rifen shrugs it off and tells him he's fine. Silen's wide-eyed, stunned to see Rifen's aura, and confirms he's an aura wielder. Though if he had just waited, he could have struck back clean. But tanking hits has basically become second nature for this guy, after all those beatdowns from Grandpa Fist. Deciding it's time to polish his skills, he taunts the ugly beast to bring it on, and the clash shakes the ruins. Meanwhile, Lord Ego nearly chokes on his pride, watching in disbelief that this man has an aura while a noble like him couldn't even manifest it. To him, the sight feels unreal, wondering who the hell this guy is, and where this monster of a man even came from. Dungeon Guardian Grellbeast rages against Rifen, the self-proclaimed king of fists, but the brawl only proves how far his training has taken him. Every swing from the demon feels clumsy and predictable, letting Rifen counter with ease. The problem is, these ruin guardians never stay down. The ruins keep pumping them full of magic to heal their wounds. Grellbeast goes wild, but the Iron Fist locks him up. He cracks his jaw with some aerial combat practice, then he turns him into the perfect punching bag for his striking drills. The party watches in awe as the brute force treats the demon like a training dummy. But Reven knows he can't play forever. Time to pull out the Calamity Horn and end this in one shot. The demonic beast leaps back from the fierce fighter. Reven curses his audience for being a liability since one wrong move could bring the whole place down on their heads. Todd yells that if they bless an aura-infused sword with holy power, it might finish the thing. Reven already knows that trick, but he admits he doesn't even know how to channel aura into a weapon. Todd nearly faints at the idea that this hardhead only runs aura through his body, calling his sect insane. While Reven wrestles with Grellbeast, Pretty Boy Cylon chimes in that his body's tough enough. Then he blesses both him and the sword in the name of Filanence. The blessing surges through him like lightning, firing him up even more. The brute lifts the demon like it's nothing and smashes it into the wall, Holy Strike blazing through the weapon. Suddenly he realizes Pretty Boy just cast a spell, Holy Striking meant for metal on his body, and it actually worked. Cylon, unfazed, lets the crazy bruiser go wild. So Reven charges in with a jaw-cracking divine kick, follows it up with a divine knee and a divine punch. He then hurls Grellbeast into the air before finishing the demon off in style. After the flashy kill, Pretty Boy's practically starry-eyed at him. But Reven just grumbles for Cylon to drop the spell already. While the injured are being dragged out, Sir Useless pipes up, saying Reven hid his identity too well. He admits the guy is strong, but he whines about his knightly honor being trampled, accusing Reven of sneering while they struggled. Reven shrugs it off, saying he never sneered. The truth is, he doesn't care enough about these clowns to bother. Stefan loses it and charges, but the bruiser just ducks. He makes Sir Useless trip over his own swing like a clown. The fool screeches about how dare this hardhead dodge. Reven calmly says he never sneered and tells him to take the sword if it means that much. Edward, being reasonable, points out that this man's lack of greed for something so valuable shows real strength. Stefan grips the blade, fuming even harder. The bruiser thinks the thing's second-rate compared to what he used to craft in bulk back in his prime for other races. Done with the drama, he tells everyone to head back, and they follow, though the whiny knight keeps stewing in resentment. Back at Cattle Village, relief spreads as Father Cylon heals a baby. Pretty Boy plays healer merchant, curing the sick and tossing gold coins to villagers like candy. The kid clearly knows how to advertise, building up the Holy Order's image. Meanwhile, Lord Useless sulks off with his men to someplace. Sir Useless suggests they investigate Reven, and Edward agrees, since the bruiser's strength clearly keeps Stefan hooked, though the clown refuses to admit he's weaker. Meanwhile, Iron Fist plans to head out to meet Ceres but can't figure out why Pretty Boy is tagging along. Cylon explains he's choosing the path of a traveling priest, spreading the goddess's grace. He is tending to believers, even if those priests often die on the road. He was going to return to the Holy Order, but decided to become a pilgrim instead. Then his vibe turns a little creepy as he asks if he can travel with the strongest person he saw among them. Reven instantly recognizes that look. It's the same as Gerard or Todd, sizing up his body in weird ways. The bruiser sighs, thinking he's cursed to always be surrounded by clowns. Still, Pretty Boy seems decent, so a polite rejection would work. Until Reven realizes Cylon's a cleric, the ultimate first aid kit. Having him around might not be so bad if Ceres ends up hurt. While the bruiser's hyped to see Ceres, Pretty Boy keeps pestering him with questions about training. He wants tips to train abs of the upper, middle, and lower. All Reven can offer is getting beaten up a lot and hauling boulders, though he once heard an alchemist brag about a muscle-boosting potion called Protein, which Cylon instantly dismisses. Meanwhile, back at his mansion, Karen Trade Union's heir, Lord Wine-A-Lot Beret, is losing his mind over elf training. He rants that elves are supposed to serve their masters in body and mind. His butler begs forgiveness, but Beret rages that this defective elf was cheaper as a slayer and still not worth the coin. Ceres gets up from the bed, declaring she was born this way with the eyes he calls annoying. Wine-A-Lot orders his butlers to go buy a proper one, even if it's pricey, since he doesn't need a so-called broken product. He commands them to return her. In the Chitan Principality's infamous elf slave market, Elfenheim, that same elven girl, number 148, ends up back on display for the third time. Up in the far north sits the Chitan Principality, a commerce nation thriving off the Juran River that cuts straight through it. Reven and Pretty Boy finally reach Zeppelin, the capital and heart of all trade, where the streets buzz with merchants. Cylon isn't surprised. It's exactly what he expected from the continent's top city for commerce. Reven points out that this whole place was founded by merchants who bought land off the Grim Kingdom, so of course everything here revolves around coin and privilege. He knows his Ceres is somewhere in this city. Pretty Boy begs him to slow down, accusing the hardhead of flexing those long legs just to show off. Right then, an old man begs a bulky thug named Tarek to spare him. The jerk accuses him of insulting the Rollophane Trade Union. Tarek beats the poor guy 30 times, then he casually tosses 30 gold coins as payment. Pretty Boy rushes to help the elder and looks around for guards, only to find the old man calmly picking up the coins. He says it's fine since the money will help him settle here. Salon's horrified that the guy acts like nothing happened just because he got paid. But Rifen reminds him this place runs on coins, like he already said. Rifen thought all his traveling taught him about the world. But he's never seen a city where every crime gets settled with a fine instead of jail, as long as you've got money. Seelan's stunned, asking what business this beefcake has in a city like this. The guy casually tells he's here to buy an elf. Pretty boy freezes, horrified that this is the kind of person he's traveling with. Beefcake panics, trying to explain, knowing he can't exactly bring up his past life. Cylon's disgusted by men in general, but Redhead reminds him he's still a man, too. Meanwhile, the bulky thug Tarek brags to his elves that anyone complaining about the Rollophane trade union should just work harder, since mouthing off in the streets only earns them coins. The guy's got elves trailing him left and right, agreeing with his nonsense. Suddenly, Tarek spots Lord Whine-A-Lot, Beret, strolling in, and asks about the Slayer elf he bought recently. Beret looks annoyed to see him and admits he returned her 2 weeks ago for not listening. Bulklord bursts out laughing, mocking him for being too weak to tame an elf slave. No wonder Karen can't even crack the top 10 trade unions. Barrett fires back that the Slayer elf has been returned by plenty of others too, which is why she was so cheap. Tarek just grins, plotting to head to Elfenheim to snatch her up, just to see the look on his face. Rifen catches Skinny Lump Silent working out again and wonders why the kid's still skinny after trying so hard. He tells Pretty Face not to overdo it, or he'll just end up sore. But Ceylon heals himself instantly like it's no big deal. That's when he realizes the problem, that healing magic is basically rewinding time. So, instead of building muscle through strain and recovery, Pretty Boy just resets himself back to square one. This dumbhead's been wasting 5 years with zero progress. The beefcake promises to teach him a proper method later and casually asks if his long hair gets in the way. Ceylon shrugs, saying it just grows back ridiculously fast whenever cut, which makes Rifen curious about what's going on in that airhead's head to make it grow this fast. Rifen brushes it off, saying he's got enough cash to go to the slave auction, and Ceylon is tagging along. The place is packed with all kinds of slaves, but elves are clearly the top prize, worth way more than orcs or dwarves thanks to their beauty and long lifespans. This stretch out their adolescent stages for decades. Slayer elf sells for 800 gold coins too, while a regular female elf goes for 300, a young girl for about 100, and a young male for 30. Orcs are far cheaper, as an orc swordsman costs 10, a basic orc slave 5, and even a baby just 4 or 5. Adult male elves have almost no demand due to their high suicide rate, but elves overall remain popular thanks to their beauty and long lifespans, which keep them youthful far longer than other races. There's even a running joke that only a fool would invest in a baby elf, since the merchant would die of old age before seeing any profit. Ceylon explains that Elfenheim is an elf-specialized auction with over 300 years of tradition, while Hardhead finds it sickening that a place like this is called the Paradise of Elves. Pretty Face admits he's never been to an elf auction but assumes elves are treated better than orcs, only for Rifen to add they're still slaves and wonders if they're really happy. Ceylon argues elves might be better off now than starving in the wild, but Hardhead knows that's just how humans think. Fear only follows force. He's already planning a new kind of empire, not a dark empire. However, a nation where otherworldly races can live free. Soon, the auctioneer parades the prized slayers of Elfenheim, making Pretty Boy blush at their beauty. The old man wonders why this brute dragged a young lady into an auction house. Seeing forest fairies, descendants of the Great Spirit, treated like products disgusts Rifen. He still asks for a slayer with darker skin. The man teases him for having unusual taste and shows off the elves' strict diets and training like it's some kind of sales pitch, until Rifen cuts him short and demands to see the elf directly. Finally, he's led to number 148, a slayer candidate not yet fully grown, and his heart breaks to see his worn-down Ceres. Back then, Ceres scolded Mage Rifenhearth for mixing a fire plant with a seed rock, right before the whole thing exploded. The old archwizard sulked, insisting he thought he was onto something. The pretty elf snapped back that he did the same thing yesterday and blew everything up then too. Still, she couldn't help thinking how oddly cute he looked, even at his age, while wiping the dirt off his face. Rifen asked her to drop the sir and call him casually, but she refused without giving a reason. Meanwhile, chaos raged outside with fires everywhere, and King Lepenhearth arrived at the gallery with 4 warriors at his side. Tathid came to pay his final respects, while the king glanced at Athilka, Mashalan, and Cirrus, asking why they looked so grim. It wasn't his first time seeing someone on the verge of death. Across the continent, humanity had gathered a massive force of 2 million soldiers. They were throwing everything they had to bring down the Demon King, their sworn enemy. He wonders how they'll handle the aftermath, if the nations really plan to wreck themselves over a single battle just because they can't accept another race's existence. Tasid begs their lord to escape with them, but Lepenhearth refuses, saying he'll stay so they have a chance to get out. He also asks Alpoth for forgiveness. Despite a divine guarantee, he still ended up bankrupt. The dwarf calls it an oracle, but Lep shrugs, saying it's the same thing. The message said to keep an elf by his side, follow the orc leading the way, and that someone who crossed the abyss of Diamond, destined to tear down the pillar of Hawkrul, would appear to change his fate and bring salvation. Back then, the Archwizard was baffled when dwarves started calling him savior just because he blasted apart half their sanctuary. Even now, he still doesn't fully get it. With Allpoth's blessing, Michelin hopes they'll meet again someday, and Lepenharth shares the same wish. Back then, Ryfin wished Athilka and Tathid would survive and told Cirrus to go with them, but she promised to wait for him. He told her to find someone nice if he didn't make it. Yet she stayed firm, melting the old Archwizard into giving her one last hug. In the present, the seller feels guilty showing her off, calling her a defective product with no education, returned 3 times already. Skilled but with a terrible personality, she's labeled inferior, and used to train other elves by making them cut living things. Still, the auctioneer asks if this muscle freak's interest, and seeing his strange taste, raises the price to 300 gold coins. Pretty Boy asks why it is so cheap, and the old man insists she's just an inferior product. When Cirrus finally stands before her new owner, Ryfin can only wonder how much she's suffered to earn those scars. The seller offers to fetch a priest, but he tells Silan to handle the healing instead. Ryfin drapes his coat over Ceres, thinking it's cold out, then he asks if he can call her Cirrus. She agrees flatly, and he softens it by giving her the full name Cirrus Balencia. She protests that a slave doesn't need a surname. She asks if it's his, but he explains it's hers to carry from now on, not his. He introduces himself as Riffenhearth and points to Pretty Face Silen, a priest of Philinance. Later, the seller breaks into a sweat when a furious customer storms in, demanding why number 148 was sold just an hour ago. Tariq suspects Beret caught on to his plan of reclaiming her. The seller explains the buyer was an unfamiliar young man who paid cash on the spot. Bulk Thug can't believe anyone walks around with that much money for a slayer. The old man adds he even sold that so-called inferior product at a higher price. When pressed, he describes the buyer as a burly-looking guy who should be easy to recognize. Meanwhile, Ryfin is busy picking out clothes for Ceres, finding one that suits her and promising to buy more later. He asks if she's hungry, but she replies she'll only do as her master wills. Ryfin tells her not to see him as a master, but she asks if that means he'll return her. Ceres can't wrap her head around this guy, covering her with his coat, dressing her in fine clothes, and acting like she's just a human girl. Ryfin tells Ceres it'd be better if she saw him as a comrade on the road, not a master, and just called him by name. She figures it's some weird roleplay, like he's a pervy adventurer playing hero with his swordswoman, and settles on calling him Sir Riffenhearth, still convinced humans are all the same. Later, while Ceres eats like a starved beast, Rugged Guy points out that Redanti's Grace is the most famous restaurant in Zeppelin. Since goddess Redanti is the deity of earth and harvest, serving food here is basically worship. Pretty Boy argues that if it's worship, it should be free. Ryfin fires back that Philinance religion profits off beauty anyway. Though Father Salan admits that's true, she's the goddess of beauty and love after all, and since those priests charge plenty of gold, he just drops it. Meanwhile, this beefcake grins, watching Ceres devour food like a beast. Though it clearly creeps her out, he wonders if she hates it too, since this is the same spot he once brought her to celebrate the anniversary of their first meeting. Back then, he met her as her savior. Now he's just her buyer. The meaning feels as different as day and night. He wonders if fate dragged them together too soon. Still, he holds on to the hope that one day she'll accept his words, and for now, he's content with that. Afterward, at the weapon shop, Cirrus grabs a rapier. Beefcake calls out that she usually uses a scimitar. This earns him a deadly glare as she wonders how this guy knows this. Pretty Boy jumps in, bragging that real martial artists can tell by someone's hands. Then, Ceylon never imagined having a mithril weapon he longed for. Ryfin shuts him down, saying priests don't need blades. Before they can argue more, a group of shady men approaches Ryfin, clearly here on business. When pressed, the shady man says a noble wants that elf, and even offers to trade her for a proper slayer, showing a bill of exchange. This rugged man flatly refuses, repeating he's not interested, so the shady bunch assumes he's too attached to her and walks off. Ceylon just finds them weird. Later at the mansion, Tarek fumes at Romad for returning empty-handed. He says he should have at least tossed some coins after beating the guy up. Romad explains the naive kid refused, no matter the price, and with too many eyes on them. It wasn't the right time to act against common ethics. He promises to wait for the right moment to abduct the slayer, fake her death, and offer double the price, figuring it's cheaper since she was sold for so little. Tarek likes the plan and tells him to drag along Sir Lantas, who's been useless lately, sitting around not for what he's being paid for. Meanwhile, this beefcake counts the 2,000 gold he set aside, surprised he still has plenty left. It's not nearly enough to rebuild his empire, but better invested than carried around. That's when he recalls the famine hitting the agricultural nation, Provence, and its neighbor, even though Redanti's fertile lands usually keep harvests so abundant that no one ever prepares for famine. The next spring, Famine brings mass starvation and parents resort to eating their own children, convincing the rugged guy it's smart to start investing in grain now. He considers Rolifane, Karen, and Tauban, but immediately rules out Rolifane since their pervy leader abused Cirrus in his past life. That leaves Tauban, the continent's third largest union, specializing in grain and rivaling Rolifane. Meanwhile, Savolt Tauban, the union's leader, fumes when he hears Rolifane is dumping wheat and barley at half price, calling them senseless and unethical. He's worried about losing trade partners and wants to fix the exchange issues quickly. Just then, his lackey tells him a visitor wants to invest. The leader scoffs, thinking a small sum will only bring trouble, but changes his mind when he hears the man is offering 1,500 gold coins for grains. He sits down with Refen, who says the deal would be in the Crovence kingdom during the barley harvest next spring. Savolt shakes his head, saying, selling grains there is like selling soap to orcs. It will never work. He insists it will be his risk if it fails, but if it succeeds, Savolt will benefit too. Even so, the leader refuses to back what looks like a doomed investment and tells him to think it over. This brute threatens to take his business to another union, and the trader finally folds. Though he grumbles that their union's already in rough shape, he says he wants to get through these hard times and prosper later, urging Rafen to choose a safer investment. But he remembers this stubborn mule was just as headstrong in his past life, so of course, this Iron Fist insists it's his money and his call. He's ready to sign the contract, but not before warning Savolt not to skim a single coin for personal use. Then Rifen confirms that the Tauban trade union has a branch in the Grame Kingdom up north. This dude asks if there's one near Delphia's Mage Tower, but the man explains he'll need to pass through Delphia to reach the Ronta branch instead. That's when Rifen slyly asks if he can dig up some info on someone there, clearly planning to use this chance to sniff out news on Reifenhearth. Meanwhile, Celan watches Ceres pulling off slick moves with her weapon like she's showing off for an audience. Ceres remembers her mother telling her that the High Elves were once guardians of the forest, living in eternal joy under the world tree Elfenheim. They were friends with every beast, nourished by endless fruits from the trees, until humans pushed them back into misery. Her mother believed Eldia would one day lead them back to paradise, and as descendants of the Great Fairy, she wanted Ceres never to forget their pride. Later, some other elf hag told her she'd be sold off to a good place for being pretty, so she'd better learn to act loyal and polite like a proper elf. Instead, Ceres got beaten, starved, and mocked for being a pure-blooded high elf, her heritage treated like a curse. What saved her wasn't kindness or comfort but the sword. Every adult she remembered carried one, fighting and dying with dignity, and through the blade, she could recall her parents' proud figures. The memories have grown faint with time, but one thing still burns in the corner of her heart, her mother's words that their beloved daughter must never forget her pride. Afterwards, Celan is dazzled by Ceres's cool moves, but when Ceres says she just tries her best, Celan groans that it's the same bland answer Rifen gave, and she wonders if all martial artists are like this. She shows off her own move, but a gang of shady men cut in, with Romad slickly claiming they're taking the elf girl to her true master. Romad, the shady freak, insists on taking Ceres to her real owner. Father Cylon asks who they are. Romad warns them not to expect anyone to come to their aid as they've planned ahead. Prettyface protests, saying they won't sell her, so why the violence? Suddenly, a thug lunges at Celan, calling him an annoying brat. Ceres blocks the attack just in time and dives into the fray, taking out the rest. Romad is left speechless, unable to fathom how an elf slave can be this strong. Then Prettyface tells Philinance to strike the disrespectful ones with their iron mace. Suddenly, the Slayer elf suddenly saves Cylon from being stabbed by Romad, who sneers that no one will care if a young pilgrim dies. Celan's furious, but Ceres steps forward saying she'll handle it. Romad calls Talcata, the orc bruiser, telling him it's time to work. The orc apologizes to Ceres, saying it's nothing personal, it's just her fate, so she might as well accept it. Talcata admits her skills are far above the humans he usually crushes. Romad, the shady freak, warns him not to bruise her, so the orc bruiser tries to grab instead. Ceres struggles to dodge his heavy swings, regretting leaving her scimitar in her room. Romad rages that the orc can't even catch one elf girl, while Talcata grumbles that this means no dinner tonight. Frustrated, he charges again, but Ceres meets him head-on and throws him off. When she stops dodging, the orc panics that she might get hurt, which ironically gives her the perfect opening to strike. Horrified, Talcata thinks he almost killed her, not realizing Ceres trusted his control all along. Just then, Father Cylon asks if the Slayer elf can dodge flying daggers. She recalls doing it once, so he takes her word and prepares his magic. Romad, pissed beyond belief, hurls a blade at Celan. Ceres knocks it aside, buying the priest time to finish his prayer and enthusiastically beat the bastard down. A huge explosion erupts, and Celan runs while explaining that divine power only works on demons and the undead, but at least it buys them time to escape. Ceres doesn't bother listening. She just scoops him up like a shopping bag and leaps through a window. The shady freak orders Talcata to chase, But that's when Sir Lantis notices the clown still failing to catch one elf girl. He can't believe Romad couldn't manage it even with the orc's help. He is amused to see a so-called elf slayer holding her own against a veteran orc. The old man decides it's his turn, soaring up in one jump. Romad is stunned by the height and realizes this guy's an aura user. The geezer himself looks eager to turn the chase into a game of hide and seek.
Thanks for watching. Hit that like button. Let's crush 50 likes. Next part's gonna be epic.